Hi, I'm Kat Walker with your Bridge to the Other Side. This is a show in which we discuss all types of metaphysical things. We talk about shamanic healing, spiritual healings, energy healings, astrology, the paranormal, psychic insights and mediumship, and much, much more. And you all can send suggestions of guests that you would like to see on the show as well. Today, we have Brenda Smith with us again. She is a very well-known astrologer, and we did one episode with Brenda, and this is going to be a continuation. You might want to, if you hadn't seen the first episode, they're not very long, you might want to catch the first one before you watch this episode, because she is giving us kind of the ABCs of astrology. Like I always tell people, I totally believe in astrology, but I don't even know enough to understand it to be dangerous. That's why I have to have somebody like Brenda do my charts and tell me what's going on. And it's always been spot on. So without any more ado, we're going to bring Brenda back and we're going to discuss some more about astrology and some of the basics so that those of us who are interested can start to understand what the different placements mean and what the different planets mean and why your chart, as say a Taurus, like I am, is different than your brother's who is a Taurus. Why you are so different, because we have a tendency only to go by what we see in the newspaper, which is, just a snapshot of the sun sign. So the last time we had just discussed, I think, the houses that our planets can fall into. I found that really fascinating, and I'm probably going to go back and listen to it and make some notes. So when I look at my chart again, I can understand, okay, my moon is in, what house is my moon in, Brenda?
Your
Brenda's
moon
got
is
a fantastic
in the ninth house, conjunct Venus in the ninth house.
Okay, conjuncts Venus.
In the ninth house. So your moon's in the ninth house, which means that you're always looking for a learning adventure.
Yeah, well, I'm very adventure drawn.
And remember how you love to travel? You will just go dime.
I would go anywhere. I will go anywhere. I love new places and new people. So yes, and I'll go on like that. I'm still that way. So we had talked about the houses. We did not really do a rundown yet on the planets and what the planets signify. We talked about the moon, we talked about the sun, and we talked about our rising sign, but we didn't talk about, say, what Mercury means or Venus means or how that affects us in our charts.
Okay. So we went through the sun and the moon, and then after the moon, we have Mercury. Okay, the sun is masculine. Now, I just want to go by the energy. We're not going by gender, okay?
Right.
The moon is feminine. Mercury is neither. Okay.
Androgynous Mercury?
Yes, androgynous Mercury. Mercury is how you think. It's how you explain things to people. It's your sense of logic, how you come up with ideas, how you solve problems, how you communicate. Mercury rules communication, and there would be a lot less problems in the world if people would just communicate.
I totally agree.
But
in a gentle manner.
Yes. Communicate honestly. There's a difference there.
Yes.
Okay. Mercury on a counter level can mean the trickster. In other words, they can be like a silver-tongued devil to where they can really think things fast and say things to try to persuade you or try to convince you. So, you have to tune into your own intuition a lot of times with Mercury. Like you have Mercury in Taurus. So for all your fire energy, you do think things through.
Oh, yeah.
When you're making a decision, you research it and all that. Now, the downside of Mercury, or can be the negative side, is that they're not open or listen to other people's opinions, that they can be inflexible. At best, Mercury is flexible. It's ruled by Gemini. Okay. Mm-hmm. The negative side is that it can be changeable in its perceptions and changeable in its ideas. However, being able to shift your viewpoint is a very positive thing. And the Mercury energy can come up with solutions, you see, when some people can be kind of buried in their own prejudices or whatever. So Mercury has kind of an objective function in the chart. Okay, so you get into Venus. Now, Venus, the moon in the chart rules what you need in order to be happy. Venus rules what you like. Venus rules values, resources. It rules your social likes and dislikes, and also what you're attracted to. You see, people who have a very strong Venus in their chart usually have a strong drawing power, and they can get things to work for them. Whereas I like that very much in women. I don't care for it in men. Makes things too easy for them.
Same.
So
how does Venus rule our love life? I mean, we think of Venus and love.
Okay, well, the house and the planet that Venus is in, the house and the sign that Venus is in will represent your perception of love. Okay.
Oh, okay. So it does have something to do with love.
Oh, yes, it does have a lot to do with love. It does have a lot to do with love. Case in point, mine's in Aquarius. Well, I have to intellectually vibe with somebody and really feel like I'm a friend with them before I can go further. I get just as much gratification, Venus rules gratification, out of intellectual understanding and stimulation than things of a physical nature. You see what I mean?
I guess we better not go into mine.
Okay. Well, you just like to jump now and pay later.
Yeah. Yes.
With the Aries.
Yes. I have jumped a lot in my life, especially when I was younger. So, okay. So what comes next?
Okay. Well, then Mars. Now, Mars gets a bad rap, you guys. Mars rules your assertive force. Venus is centripetal force. Mars is centrifugal force. Venus shows how you draw things into you, how your drawing power, your personal magnetism. Mars shows you how you get out there and get what you want out of life. It's your assertive force. Now, it is associated with anger and speed, and people think of it in old astrology as being a malefic. But here's the thing: it also builds civilizations. It builds who you are through your effort. So it is not as negative as what people perceive it to be.
Okay.
And people with very strong Mars in their charts are worker bees. They will see what they want and then they will work to get it. Pure, plain, and simple. Also, people with strong Mars a lot of times don't have as much patience. But that can be tempered and as they get older too.
Well, I always feel like our charts are a blueprint also as to the things we need to learn about to overcome, because, there are good things in everything. But for instance, I have a lot of Aries in my chart and some strategic placements. And one thing I have worked on for many years is to calm that fire down a little bit, to not be as fiery in terms of, I guess maybe temper or things like that. And now I think that's something I've worked on very hard. I think I've kind of accomplished that. So
that's a good thing.
I think
all the fire energies, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, it's the energy of self. And a lot of times they just don't think, and they just do, so there you have it.
Yeah. So those are things that I think if we know some of these things about ourselves, and we can do what work we need to do to overcome that natural tendency to be that way.
Right.
And I think from a spiritual standpoint, transcending some of these traits helps us live our best lives and help others.
Well, that's what it's all about.
Yes. And so next,
where you see your Mars in the chart shows how you're going to get yourself out of bed in the morning to get out the door to achieve your purpose in life, which is the sun.
Interesting. That I was not aware of that. So next is
Jupiter. Jupiter is more of a social planet. It shows where you go to where you expand and where you broaden your sphere of availability and where you learn more about life. Jupiter rules the 9th house in astrology, which is higher education. Mercury rules the 3rd house, which is lower education. So Gemini is more used to facts. Jupiter is more into the bigger picture of things. Okay. Also, it is concerned with ideology, philosophy. It's also a very optimistic planet. It's considered a benefic as far as the old astrologers.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Yes. So where Jupiter is in your chart will show where you will naturally want to expand. See,
okay.
For instance, your Jupiter's in Gemini. You're interested in all these different things, and it's conjunct Mars. It's about 5 degrees off. But man, you've always been a whirling dervish, going here, doing this, doing that, being interested in all kinds of things.
Yeah. I'm reading 20 books as we speak.
Right. Yes. Yes. So,
yeah, that is very me. Okay. So what is next? This is fascinating to me. It really is. I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the first one and second one and take notes again.
Well, I will say one more thing about Jupiter. Jupiter, at best, can give you the proverbial shot in the arm to make your life better. With Jupiter, things can get better, okay? But the negative side of Jupiter is excess. In other words, too much of a good thing. And people can kind of get out of bounds with Jupiter. You see what I mean? And that they can get, I don't want to say out of control, but get overextended, to put it in a nice way, to where there's so much going on that they don't really, they feel spent, or they don't get the things done they need to get done. Also, in the most negative sense, Jupiter can rule arrogance.
Okay.
So we're going to get into Saturn. And now Saturn is another one. Yes, Saturn is another one that gets a bad rap in traditional astrology. However, Jupiter expands, Saturn contracts. Saturn is where you have to put your focus, where you have to be conscientious. Very important to be mindful of the laws of society and spiritual laws and governmental laws of society, and to be organized and conscientious and keeping your nose to the grindstone. But here's the best part about Saturn. It's considered to be one of the most spiritual planets because you build your character and then you develop into who you are. Remember what I said about the 10th house? Being ruled by Capricorn? Well, Saturn rules Capricorn. Also, Saturn represents what you truly want out of life, and it helps you get it. Now, if you are going around, not paying attention to your life, being haphazard, doing this, doing that, and not being aware, Saturn will nail you. However, if you are, basically all it boils down to is that you need to be an adult. And if you're an adult, which is not fun sometimes, and you do what you need to do, then Saturn rewards you. Ultimately, the limiting power of Saturn is about ultimately manifestation.
Wow. That's really cosmic.
Yes, yes. So it is a really good thing to understand your Saturn, to understand its sign and house placement and the aspects to it. And also, that can be the point of greatest sensitivity, or the place where you're most defensive, or where you're going to have the hardest time. Okay. But it's all about working through it.
Everything's all about working through it.
That's right. It's all about working through it.
And so what's next?
What's next is Uranus. We're getting into the transpersonal planets. Okay. Uranus is the one astrological energy or one planet you absolutely cannot control. Whereas Saturn creates barriers, Uranus smashes through those barriers so that you can have more independence and more representation of your true nature. Okay, a lot of times with Uranus transits in astrology, things happen that are unexpected, and you just have to go with it.
So
Also,
to me, that would look like growth opportunities instead of tragedies.
right. Well, sometimes you get the rug pulled out from under you, but it's necessary because you didn't need it anymore. See, Saturn will remove. Saturn just goes, boom, it's over, you know. But also, Saturn will also pave the way for new things. And a lot of times, oh, excuse me, not Saturn, Uranus. Uranus, sometimes energy can be unsettling, but usually, I'd say in 95% of cases, people's lives improve afterwards. So you have to embrace that we're going to go through change, and sometimes we're not going to like it, and you just got
not what we were looking for.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said it was not what we were looking for, and boom.
That's right. Not that we were expecting, that type of thing. But it shows where you're the most individual in the chart.
Okay. Interesting. I have a personal relationship with Uranus. So.
Yes, you do. Also, Uranus is considered to rule genius, whereas Mercury is very much into, the intellectual working out of things. Uranus is all about that spark that you understand and the inspiration that comes down as well.
Okay. So
the next one is Neptune, and Neptune breaks down the barriers, and at best, by nature, it's ruled by Pisces. Uranus is ruled by Aquarius. It's exalted in Scorpio. Neptune rules Pisces, excuse me. And I hope I said that right earlier. Neptune is all about altruism. It's about art, dance, being look at the real spiritual side of society, and look at the more transcendent sides of society, and to have universal compassion and understanding. However, the negative side of Neptune is that there's escapism. And a lot of times people with super afflicted Neptunes can have a hard time telling the truth, or they tend toward escapism, or they don't see the reality of the situation and all that. Also, where Neptune is in your chart a lot of times can show where you're the least objective about things, especially with the moon too. The moon can show where you're least objective.
What else?
Okay, then after that is Pluto. Pluto is all about transformation, whereas its effects may not be obvious in the beginning. It's all about going through, digging down deeply, and going through change. And you may not like it, but it's very much like shedding a snakeskin. And then you may not be the same, but you will have a rebirth. Like where Pluto is in the chart, in the house, shows where you're really going to kind of obsess on developing those areas. Now, my Pluto is in the 5th house, and I have tried to develop my art all my life, and I've never given up. And so it's a real Plutonian thing for me.
So where does that leave us now?
Okay, those are the 10 planets.
Okay.
I
wasn't counting. Okay, so I think it's very interesting to look at like where we talked about the houses, and so where each one of these land for us in a house has a great significance. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about a few other things. Well, before we get into these other things, I wanted to ask you something that I don't think I've ever asked you before. But now I hear now about I don't know if they're minor asteroids or minor planet, but I mean, things like Lilith and some of these other things that come into play.
Well, yes, they like Ceres and Juno, they are asteroids. They are more for the advanced levels of astrology.
Right.
And so it's very important when you're learning astrology is to go with the basics. And once you get those down, then you can expand out. So
Okay.
I'm
Because
not
I'm
saying
always
that they
hearing
have
people say, well, my
significance.
Lilith is doing blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, okay. Okay. So that's this.
I mean,
We do want to
they
kind of
work.
say
They work. It's just that it's important to learn the basics of astrology. If you really want to learn it, you have to go. It's like learning a language. So,
oh, absolutely.
yes.
It's really quite a lot. So let's wind up this segment right now.
Okay.
And like I mentioned before, I'm going to have to go back and look at these and take notes so that I can start understanding my own chart and placement a little bit better as well. Of course, you tell me stuff, but and so I would suggest to other people do that as well, is to, if you're interested, view these again so you could understand your placements. In order to get the full picture, you do have to have your time of birth, correct?
It's very helpful to know your exact time of birth. There is a process called rectification where you could sit down with someone and talk about the major incidences and happenings in their lives. And you could go back through an ephemeris and mark those, and then you can ascertain the rising sign. I mean, that has been done before.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. But for most people, I believe if you can get a copy of your birth certificate,
correct,
you can get your time of birth.
And also, astrology is an intuitive thing. If someone says I'm born between 4 and 8 in the morning, you can just talk to them and you can just tune in on what the rising sign is, because it would be, say they're born in April, it'd be Aries or Pisces, Aries or Taurus. So you could talk to them and get the feel. You see what I mean?
Well, you're a psychic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't mention to everybody else. You're also a psychic, and you read tarot and things as well, which you can also go to Brenda for. But I'm not sure that all astrologers are as intuitive as you are.
Oh, well, thanks.
So
but it's ruled by Uranus, and it is a tool for opening up your intuition. Astrology is ruled by Uranus. So
again, I want you to mention how people can get in touch with you.
Okay. My website is Brenda G. Smith, BRENDA Smith.com. And then you can click on that, and then you can leave me a message through email. But the best way to get a hold of me is through text, and that is 816-986-7494.
Okay, well, that kind of wraps up this episode for us. There will be at least one more with Brenda. And so I'm very grateful for her to teach me. And I'm sure that everybody else is learning as well. So until next time, have a blessed day. And maybe figure out a little bit about your chart. You can now that we have Google, you can kind of go online and find out what your placements are and start learning a little bit about yourself.
Yes, you can go on astro.com, which is a free site, and you can get your chart done through there.
The computer age and Google have brought us a long way to be able to understand some of these things. But I cannot encourage people enough to get their chart done.
Yes.
And not just to get it done, but then to get it updated for what's this year going to look like for me, or what's the next couple of months going to look like for me. With that, we're going to end this segment, and we will see you in not next week, but the week after. Namaste.